San Francisco Planning Commission and Recreation and Park Commission joint hearing for Thursday, October 5th, 2017. I'd like to remind members of the public that the commissions do not tolerate any disruption or outbursts of any kind. Please silence your mobile devices that may sound off during these proceedings. And when speaking before the commissions, if you care to, do state your name for the record. I'd like to take roll for the Planning Commission. President Hillis.
Here.
Commissioner Fong.
Here.
Commissioner Koppel.
Here.
Commissioner Melgar.
Here.
We do expect Commissioners Richards, Johnson, and Moore to arrive shortly.
And for the Recreation and Park Commission, Commissioner Buell.
Here.
Commissioner Anderson.
Here.
Commissioner Bonilla. Here. Commissioner Harrison.
Here.
Commissioner Mazzola.
Here.
Commissioner McDonald.
Here.
And Commissioner Lowe does have an excused absence.
Commissioners, under your special calendar, we will hear items 1A, B, C, and D first. For case numbers 2013.0538, K, SHD, and E and X, please note that on May 18th, 2017, after hearing and closing public comment, the Planning Commission and Recreation and Park Commission continued these matters to July 27th by a vote of 6-0. Commissioner Johnson was absent, and 5-0, Commissioner McDonald was absent, respectively. These are for discussion and possible joint action by the Planning Commission and Recreation and Park Commission to raise the cumulative shadow limit for Gene Friend Recreation Center pursuant to the jointly approved Planning Code Section 295 implementation memo adopted in 1989 in order to accommodate new shadow cast by the proposed project at 301 6th Street. Followed by discussion and possible action by the Recreation and Park Commission to adopt a resolution recommending to the Planning Commission regarding whether or not new shadow cast by the proposed project at 301 6th Street will have a significant adverse impact on the use of the Gene Friend Recreation Center as required by Planning Code Section 295, the Sunlight Ordinance. Followed by the Planning Commission adoption of findings, large project authorization, and that's it.
Good morning, Commissioners.
I just want to clarify, Jonas, this is the second time we've heard this item,
This is the second time we're hearing
but
this
it's been a
item.
while.
It
So
has.
I'd still say we keep public comment at 3 minutes in the presentation from the project sponsor. It can be 10 minutes, but if you don't need that time, by all means, if you can get through it and you're saying things you said last time you were here, let's try to keep it brief.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Ella Samansky, Planning Staff. With me is Jordan Harrison, Recreation and Park Staff. Following my presentation, Jordan will give a detailed presentation on the shadow analysis and shading of Gene Friend Recreation Center. I have provided a copy of the Costa-Hawkins agreement for this project, along with a red line version with minor clarifying edits to the conditions on the affordable units. The request before you is for a large project authorization and shadow authorization for new construction of an 82-foot tall mixed-use building that will cast shade on the Gene Friend Recreation Center. The site is on the corner lot spanning the blocks between Folsom and Shipley Streets within the mixed-use residential zoning district and the 85X Height and Bulk District. The project proposes the demolition of the existing one-story car wash and surface parking lot and the construction of an 8-story mixed-use building containing 95 dwelling units, approximately 5,800 square foot of ground floor commercial space. 15 of these units would be on-site affordable units, with the project sponsor voluntarily increasing the amount of on-site affordable to 16% of the total units. The project would include approximately 7,600 square feet of open space, 35 off-street bicycle parking spaces, 35 off-street just vehicle parking spaces, 96 Class 1 bicycle parking spaces, and 16 Class 2 spaces. Following the May 18th hearing, the project sponsor revised the design to both increase the residential density and also to reduce the shadow cast on Gene Friend Recreation Center. They did so by setting back the top 2 floors at an angle along 6th Street towards the corner of 6th and Folsom. As a result of pulling back these upper floors, the project would no longer cast shadow on Gene Friend Recreation Center after 9 a.m. The project massing emphasizes the corners of 6th and Folsom and Shipley while locating the rear yard courtyard to connect with mid-block open space and reducing the massing along Shipley Street, so it steps down to the 4-story height. The ground floor provides pedestrian-oriented commercial frontages on all 3 sides. In order for the project to proceed, it requires the large project authorization and shadow authorization. As part of the large project authorization, the project is requesting exemptions from the requirements for rear yard, obstructions, dwelling unit exposure, and off-street parking. Compliance with the criteria for the exceptions is described in the draft Section 329 motion in your packet. Staff believes that the requested modifications are warranted due to the overall quality of design and the appropriateness of the scale and massing for the corner parcel. In addition, the project requires the Planning Commission with the Recreation and Park Commission make a determination that the shadow impacts of the project will not be significant or adverse to the use of Jean Friend Recreation Center. In summary, the department supports the project because it meets the goals and objectives of the general plan and the intent of the mixed-use residential district to develop mid-rise, high-density residential housing and expand retail and commercial space. The project exhibits overall design that is compatible with the surrounding neighborhood and meets the applicable requirements of code with those exceptions noted in the large project authorization. The department has had 3 phone calls and 3 letters from residents in opposition expressing concern for the effects of the project on shadow, views, traffic, parking in the neighborhood, and on-site parking, as well as specifically an objection to the obstruction exception. The department has also received letters in support of the project from the SF Housing Action Coalition, Carpenter Union Local 22, the South of Market Business Association, Friends of Jean Friend Recreation Center in Victoria, Manolo Dreves Park Group, Veterans Equity Center, Filipino American Development Foundation, United Players, West Bay Filipino Multi-Service Center, and the South of Market Community Action Center. This concludes my report. I will now turn it over to Jordan.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jordan Harrison with the Recreation and Park Department. I'm going to provide you a quick summary of the shadow effects from the proposed project. I'm not sure if the presentation will load. There we go. So I'll provide a quick overview of Section 295, the Sunlight Ordinance, which was adopted in 1984 by the voters of San Francisco. In 1989, the Joint Commissions, Rec and Park and Planning Commission, adopted a memorandum that provides guidance on determining the significance of shadow from projects. And part of that guidance includes an absolute cumulative limit on new shadow on 14 downtown parks, including this park, the Jean Friend Rec Center. Because of that limit, the action before you today is to jointly raise the limit, and as well for the Recreation and Park Commission to make guidance to the Planning Commission on the effects of the shadow. Ella provided an overview of the project. Here's a quick visual of where it's located relative to the Recreation Center, as well as 2 quick images of the project itself. Here is the Jean Friend Recreation Center. You can see that there is an outdoor sports court, the Jean Friend building itself, a playground, and there's also a grassy area. This slide, which is also in your Rec and Park packet, provides a summary of the quantitative shadow effects resulting from the project. As you can see, there is a 0.076% increase in shadow of the total available annual sunlight for the park. This slide here provides a summary of the quantitative shadow effects of the proposed project, including the size. The shadow at its largest will get up to just about 15,000 square feet, and that would be at 7:44 a.m. in the spring and fall. It's located along the Harriet Street entrance, over the grassy area, and passes to Folsom Street entrance. And its average duration is 1 hour and 4 minutes. The longest is 1 hour and a half. And new shadow would occur from mid-January to late November. This image illustrates that largest single shadow, the moment of the largest new shading, which would be at 7:44 a.m. September 6th. And this animation shows you the passage of the shadow throughout that day. So we're also provided information about the cumulative projects within the vicinity. There are 4 other projects in the pipeline. 2 have already been before the Joint Commissions. 1 other is today, and then another will be in the future. This map illustrates where those projects are. This table, which was provided in the Rec and Park packet, includes a summary of the shadow effects from all 5 of those projects. And this animation illustrates the shadow effects of all 5 of those projects. So in summary, these are the shadow effects from this particular project, 301 6th Street. And I'm available to answer any questions about the shadow analysis, as well as Ella. And thank you.
Thank you. I'm sure we'll have questions, but let's hear from the project sponsor first, and then we'll take public comment.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for your time this morning. Jody Knight, Ruben Junius and Rose, on behalf of the Connors, the project sponsor here. We're excited to be here to update you about what's happened on this project since May 18th when we were last before you. We think we've made some great design changes to the project that we're excited about, and Gary will update you about those in a few minutes. We're very conscious of keeping it short, so thanks for that. The current design provides 95 dwelling units, including at 95 dwelling units, 15 on-site BMR units. And one of the major things that we've done since May is responded to some concerns that we heard from the commissioners and the community. And the first major concern that we heard was about the shadow on the recreation center. And so what we've been doing since then is really work to minimize that shadow. The current design that we propose with the cutout upper floors was what we were able to do to have no shadow after the park opens at 9. As we discussed last time, there is plans on the books to redevelop the rec center, in which case the shadow impact would be very minimal. But we understand that there is concern about the shadow after the shadow in the park currently, and so we really worked hard to minimize that shadow. The other thing that we did was met with the community groups and did a lot of work with them because we really wanted to have a partnership with community groups and have their support of the project. The Connor family has long worked on parks projects and really wanted this to be a partnership with local community groups. And we have a support of a number of community groups, also the Carpenters who are here today in support of the project. And so we're really excited about where we've come with those groups, and you'll hear from some of those groups shortly. And so the specific benefits that are currently being provided as part of the projects you got as part of your packet, but 95 dwelling units, retail space that will really activate that street front and is compatible with the development going on currently. 16% BMR units, which is greater than what's required. Contribution for youth programming, community-based housing, and other social services that we heard were really needed in SOMA. Ground floor commercial space so that a community-serving retail tenant can afford to be in that space, and that's for 25 years so that there can be a tenant that can remain in that space to serve the community. And then using local labor for maintenance of the project. The Connors really see this as an ongoing partnership with the community, and we think that the current project provides a project that will really that will do that, and we're excited to be here today. Thank you.
Very quickly, I'll go through a summary of what we had done in response to the concerns that were expressed in May. Again, here's the site orientation that you saw from the previous presentation. On the upper right-hand side is our site, and on your lower left-hand side is the Gene Friend recreational area. What we did was we went through several iterations of trying to find out what building shape would not cast any shadows after 9 o'clock. This is the two comparison of on your left to see our building, how it was in May. You can see how it projects out of the red area of the model. We went back and sort of sliced the building, as you see on the right, which is called option 4. Again, here's comparing the two renderings of the final product. The top 2 floors were cut at a diagonal 19 feet along the Folsom Street frontage and 5 feet along the Shipley frontage. It actually created a more dynamic image of the mass of the building, how it moves toward the corner. We're very excited, actually, about this result. Again, the floor plans, as you can see, We had an L-shaped building originally in May, and now we have sort of a more of a horseshoe-shaped building on the lower floors. What happened was when we cut the diagonal on the upper 2 floors, it impacted 6 of the 2-bedroom units. And for us to sort of recapture those 2-bedroom units, we had to locate them on the Shipley Street side. Those were approximately 1,100 square foot 2-bedroom units with 2 baths. They were family-style units, and we wanted to locate them against the courtyard and open space. So it's very pleasant right now, and in the alley. It's very quiet. Again, the upper floors on the left shows the original plan in May, and on the right, you see the new diagonal on the 7th and 8th floor. Again, this is the view of the previous project from Shipley and 6, looking down Shipley. The massing along Shipley is not that significant or present on the right-hand side in the right drawing. I am available to answer any questions you have for the design. That is most of it. This is to show the images of the shadow of the May design, which at 9 o'clock you still had a portion of the shadow at August 16th on the Gene Friend recreational area. With the new design, the shadow has departed the boundaries of the Gene Friend recreational area at 8:59. This is just some of the same. Better to be lucky than good. And then again, that's the conclusion of the changes that we've made. And this is just some of the other images if you have any questions.
Great, I'm sure we will.
All right, thank you.
Mr. G. We'll open this up first for public comment. I've got a couple speaker cards. Raquel Rodan-Diaz, Timothy Rafe, Dennis Lumsey, and if there's others who'd like to speak, please line up on the screen side of the room. Welcome.
Good morning, Commissioners. Raquel Redondias, Project Manager for Soma Pilipinas, and I'm here with a letter from Bernadette C., who's the Executive Director of the Philippine American Development Foundation. I won't go through the whole letter, but we do want to thank you for your leadership and your support in allowing time for our community groups to work with the Connor family in addressing the initial concerns we had over the projects. And over the last few months, with the support of Supervisor Jane Kim's office and Bobby Lopez, we've been able to meet with them and talk about affordable housing, the needs for neighborhood-friendly designs, as well as economic opportunities for local residents. And we are in support of the project as it's being proposed today. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good morning, Park and Rec and Planning Commission. My name is Dennis Lumsey. I'm a member of Local 22, longtime residents of San Francisco. Used to be on the PAC board in San Francisco. And this project will allow a carpenter like me to continue living in San Francisco. It would help me continue my career as a carpenter, working towards retirement. I'm a carpenter. I'm a journeyman carpenter, and I'm out of Local 22. And when I'm not working, I'm Carpenters in Action, so I'm constantly supporting the carpenters. I'm in support of this 999 Folsom project, and ask that you pass this project and allow a responsible union contractor to build this project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Timothy Rife. I'm a field representative with Carpenters Local 22. I'd like to talk a little bit about the project. Sixth Street Associates is a San Francisco-based family-owned and operated real estate development and supports Friends of Recreation and Parks since the late 70s and is a significant money, donates significant money for park improvements. The Connors are a longtime San Francisco family and site owner and a strong and reliable development partner. The project is required by the city and county for the inclusionary housing project to provide 13.5% inclusionary housing, or 11 units, but they're going to go for 15 units, creating much needed housing for middle income and low income and workforce housing. The project sponsor is making generous financial contributions for the use and support of local and SOMA community groups' respective missions to provide parks and youth programming. 1,000 square feet of the ground floor of commercial space on Shipley will be offered at a 50% fair market value for 25 years for use by a neighborhood-serving organization or merchant. The project sponsor and community groups will work together to find suitable tenants or tenants. Carpenters Local 22, we support 6th Street Associates' commitment to using a union general contractor for the 999 Folsom Street, also known as the 301 6th Street project, which will ensure the creation of numerous construction job opportunities for our workers, many of who live in the south of Market area. Our diverse workforce comes from throughout the San Francisco and Bay Area. Currently, we have 235 members who live in the south of Market area. We are committed to provide local workforce hiring and greatly appreciate the opportunity to provide local south of Market residents with a sustainable living wage and union job. We ask that you pass this morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good morning, Commissioners. The Veterans Equity Center appreciates your support in giving the community and the project sponsors the opportunity to talk about 301 6th Street Associates project at 301 6th Street and its impact on the neighborhood. VEC, together with other community organizations and groups, were able to discuss affordable housing and small business opportunities, as well as concerns about the shadow that the project will cast in the neighborhood. In response to community concerns, the project sponsor and various organizations that are part of Soma Pilipinas have been able to come to an agreement on an improved project that will include an additional BMR units, ground floor commercial space to be offered at 50% of fair market rent for 25 years, and a commitment to local hiring on end-use jobs. VEC expresses its support for the 301 6th Street Associates project at 301 6th Street. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good morning, Commissioners. Corey Smith speaking on behalf of the San Francisco Housing Action Coalition. We already spoke about this project previously. I'm not going to bore you with those details, but we are again speaking in support and thrilled that the redesign got everybody on the same page related to the shadow impact, the number of BMR units, as well as the number of total units in the project. So we ask you to please move it forward today. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi, good morning, Planning Commissioners. Good morning, Park and Rec Commissioners. My name is Carla Laurel, and I am the Executive Director of West Bay Filipino Multi-Service Center. We're one of the oldest Filipino nonprofits that have been serving the Soma community since 1968, and I'm here to support, with other community organizations, the 301 6th Street project. 100% of our families live in Soma. We work with over 85 youth daily, and so a lot of our organizations are they're extended homes for our kids and for our families, and the rec center is their own personal backyard. So we do take this project very personally. With that being said, we're extremely appreciative for 301 6th Street's associates and their project sponsor really trying to understand the community's concerns so that it's mutually beneficial for the existing community and for the new community that continues to come. We're thankful and appreciative for them to redesign their project in a way that reduces the shadow impact on a space that many of our kids use daily, and increase the employment opportunities for local residents and affordable housing that's beyond what they're required to do. So again, we support the project, and thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Laura. Next speaker, please.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Heather Phillips, and I'm a member of the Friends of Jean Friend Park and Victoria Manalo Draves Park as well. We've been in front of you over several projects, and as you know, we are staunch advocates about the shadow impacts that are happening around our parks and recreation centers. We are really thankful for the opportunity that this commission gave to take a second look at the project and to spend more time with the project sponsor. We're really glad that the project sponsor has really made a commitment to reduce the shadow, to increase the affordable housing, and to make a really strong commitment to community organizations to make sure that this really is a project where the public benefit outweighs the shadow impact. And so we are happy to be in support of this project before you today and hopes that it will move forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Misha Olivas. I am with United Players, and I am a Soma resident. I'm not looking at memes on my phone. I'm looking at my notes. I just really want to thank you for the extra time that you gave us to meet with the project sponsor to really discuss this project and come to a mutually agreeable solution. We deeply appreciate the project sponsor meeting with us repeatedly, revising their design, and reducing the shadow where they could, and then having the conversation around community benefits where that shadow could not be reduced. And so I feel like this is a great success, an example of how, when given more time, we can work together to come to a really good solution that works for everyone. That being said, United Players fully supports this project moving forward. We're excited for changes at that corner. We're excited for the new housing. We're excited for the increased BMR units. And we're really excited about the range of affordability that this project sponsor was willing to entertain with us. And so, again, United Players fully supports this project. Aside from that, I definitely, like Heather said, we're staunch shadow, I don't know what word you want to use after that, but concerned citizens. And with upcoming projects, we know that they're going to keep coming. We know that these are going to keep happening. And what from the last hearing, it was interesting to me that planning commissioners seem to hold a more concerned view of the shadow on the park than the park and rec commissioners. And so I just really wanted to say, if Prop K is outdated or irrelevant or not working, then let's do the work to revise it so that it meets today's needs and standards. But until that work is done, we have to continue to honor it, and we have to continue to work under the guidelines that it's provided and protections that it's provided for our parks. But I hope that you can move this forward project today. We're excited for the great things to come in Soma. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Ms. Olivas. Next speaker, please. And I have one additional speaker card, David Wu. If there are others too who would like to speak, please line up.
Good morning, my name's David Wu. I'm with SOMCAN, and I'm going to be reading a letter from Angelica Cabande, who could not be here today. Dear Commissioners, thank you for your leadership and support in allowing time for our community to work with the 301 6th Street Associates LLC project at 301 6th Street to address additional neighborhood concerns. Over the last few months, our organization, along with other community organizations, were able to meet with the project sponsor to discuss our concerns around the project's shadow on the Gene Friend Rec Center, increasing affordable housing opportunities for the residents in the area, small business opportunities, and neighborhood-friendly designs that depict the Filipino community. In response to community concerns, the project sponsor and various organizations, including SOMCAN, have been able to come to an agreement to ensure this project has components that will address the issues and or concerns that we raised. This letter is to express support for the current 301 6th Street Associates LLC project at 301 6th Street, given the mutually agreed to mitigation measures. Thank you again for your support and consideration of our community.
Great, thank you, Mr. Wu. Any additional public comment on this item? Seeing none, we'll close public comment and open it up to commissioner comments and questions. If you want to divide this up and take Rec Park first, we can do that, but anyway, or we could just jump in.
I'm not seeing any comments. Okay, Commissioner Anderson.
I really appreciate the community collaborative, and I'm not sure who to direct this question to, maybe the project proponent, but could you tell us a little bit more about the $504,000 that has been gifted and what those dollars are going to be spent for?
Thanks. One of the things that we heard during discussions with the community was about the need for just for local services, and all the organizations have different issues. Some of them are more focused on housing, obviously, veterans issues, playtime, space for the kids. That was a major issue in the park. Was as we heard that this is this is people's backyard, and so providing youth programming, sports. There are a lot of subsidies for sports programs, and so our estimation was that the community groups could best decide how to spend that money, but that the intent is that will be used for local programming for the community.
Okay, and do you know what sort of oversight is going to happen around that $500,004?
That will be provided by the groups themselves. So, I mean, the Connors aren't really in a position to tell them, exactly this money should go for this sports
Right.
program. But each of the organizations will be determining that individually, and they all have somewhat different needs.
Right. Well, I really appreciate hearing that. That's an amazing, generous gesture. Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Connor.
I'd like to ask a question in relation to what Kat just asked, and that is, can the funds be expended over a long period of time, or is it a one-shot deal?
The payments will be made, or there are staggered payments made based on project approvals, but there's no limitations. I mean, one of the things that providing the funds to the group individually is that they can decide how to spend that money. And I know, like, one of the things that's been looked at is that there are annual sports programs that are provided, and so that pool of money can be used moving forward. But again, that there's the flexibility for the individual organizations to determine what works best for them in terms of providing those services.
Okay, thank you.
I don't see any other comments, so turn it over to you.
Great. Commissioner Moore.
I'm really happy that we have spent the extra time, and I thank everybody who did stick their minds together and work this out. This is a can-do project, and I couldn't be happier that we're all sitting around here hearing the positive and supportive comments. To Mr. Yi, congratulations, Architect Yi. It is a can-do, and I think it has become a better project. I do appreciate the attention to Shipley. I think it really creates not just a one-sided Fulton Street, 6th Street building, but it indeed does what we want to do, activate our alleys, and really extend the living alley idea plus the residential character of Shipley down that way. As to the shadow, I think we have reached some kind of a wonderful new potential benchmark, and looking at Prop K, if indeed the shadow stops at 759, and it is before
I think
opening...
8:59.
Huh?
8:59.
8:59.
Yes.
Sorry, I don't exactly have your opening hours exactly in my mind. And that is a safe... Huh? And I think it's a safe hour, summer or winter. And so if we can do that, I think we are still interpreting Prop K, at least in my book, to the parameters for which it was created. And then the only thing I like to ask Mr. Yi, I hope that your rooftop equipment, which obviously can be up to 20 feet in height, does not interfere with the shadow.
What happened is we did put all the projections that you see on the rendering, the fins and everything was there. The original elevator roof was actually projecting out. We had to redesign the entire building floor plate and push it back east. So we didn't just cut the building, we actually redesigned the floor plates for each floor. So.
Thank you for giving us such a clear guiding answer. I hope that the planning department will take that into consideration when we look at any future project, that the rooftop equipment has to be accounted for in the shadow fan. I just want to say that because I often have projects where the renderings are not quite done showing the equipment. And it helps us to not fool the public by saying, this is it, when in reality there's going to be another 20 feet of stuff on top of that roof. So thank you. I am very much in support of the project.
Thanks. Commissioner Fong.
Well, Commissioner Moore said it very well, and I think this is a good example. I know this has been a quite painful and long to some project and process, but I think it's ideal in that we have a local family who obviously is being very generous and wants the project done. The community whose engagement I think is, I think you've got some great things for the kids in the park there without at the cost of killing a project. And so we're getting some housing out of that, which we greatly need from an overall city planning perspective. So I am supportive. Jonas, how do we want to move these items? Can we make one motion or they have to be separate motions?
Some will be joint, some will be separate, but the motions should be separate. The first action is a joint action for the Planning Commission and Recreation and Park Commission. The second item is a Recreation and Park Commission action only, followed by Planning Commission actions. So,
okay. So can I make a motion to...
they should be taken one by one, actually.
One by one.
Yeah, until the last
At least
two.
The joint action should be taken first.
Yes,
And
and
then
then
we could- we
the
could-
Recreation and Park will have to make a separate action.
But you
Okay.
can move the joint.
So I move to approve item 1A.
Second.
We have a motion? Yet? Oh, all right. Go ahead.
Thank you, Commissioner Fong. And the seconder was
Commissioner Moore.
Commissioner Moore, thank you. On that motion, commissioners, or planning commissioners, to raise the cumulative shadow limit for Gene Friend. Commissioner Fong?
Aye.
Commissioner Koppel?
Aye.
Commissioner Melgar?
Aye.
Commissioner Moore?
Aye.
And Commission President Hillis?
Aye.
So moved, Commissioners. That motion passes unanimously, 5-0.
We're going to entertain a motion. Commissioner Anderson, did you have a question before we do that?
Yeah, I just thought on the Rec and Park piece, I did want to point out that I believe this project comes with its own 4,600 square feet of open space. Is that right?
The total open space provided is 7,600 square feet.
7,600.
That includes the private decks that comply with the planning code. That includes the podium level courtyard, open space, and the rooftop also. So the cumulative, I think we're required by code to have 7,600, and we're providing 7,615.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Will you want to call the roll, Margaret?
Commissioner Anderson?
Aye.
Commissioner Bonilla?
Aye.
Commissioner Harrison?
Aye.
Commissioner Mazzola?
Aye.
Commissioner McDonald?
Aye.
And Commissioner Buell?
Aye.
It passes unanimously.
Commissioners, we'll leave you with items 1C and D.
So, well, hold up. We actually need to go to 1B first so that the.
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot about 1B. I apologize.
So now we need a motion for 1B, please.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Please
Okay.
call the roll.
Commissioner Anderson?
Well, wait, I want to make sure I vote right here. I vote that it has no
Okay,
significant
that's-
adverse impact.
So, aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Bonilla?
Aye.
Commissioner Harrison?
Aye.
Commissioner Mazzola?
Aye.
Commissioner McDonald?
Aye.
McDonald, sorry, and Commissioner Buell.
Aye.
It passed unanimously. Thank you.
Okay.
We have 1C and 1D.
Correct. I'd like to move to approve item 1C and 1D.
Second?
Thank you, Commissioners. On that motion to adopt findings, shadow findings, and approve a large project authorization, Commissioner Fong?
Aye.
Commissioner Koppel?
Aye.
Commissioner Melgar?
Aye.
Commissioner Moore?
Aye.
And Commission President Hillis?
Aye.
So moved, Commissioners. That motion passes unanimously, 5-0. Commissioners, that'll place us on items 2A, B, C, and D for case numbers 2013.0977, SHD, K, and E and X at 980 Folsom Street. Discussion and possible joint action by the Planning Commission and Recreation and Park Commission to raise the cumulative shadow limit for Gene Friend Recreation Center pursuant to the jointly approved Section 295 implementation memo adopted in 1989. Followed by discussion and possible action by the Recreation and Park Commission to adopt a resolution recommending to the Planning Commission regarding whether or not the new net shadow cast by the proposed project will have a significant adverse impact. Finally, the Planning Commission, please note, following items 2A and B, the Recreation and Park Commission will adjourn, and the Planning Commission will remain in session to separately consider additional items 2C and 2D for adoption of shadow findings and a large project authorization.
Good morning again. Ella Szymanski, planning staff with Jordan Harrison, Recreation and Park staff. Again, the requests before you are a large project authorization and shadow authorization for new construction of an 85-foot tall mixed-use building that will cast shade on the Gene Friend Recreation Center. The site is a through lot that spans the blocks between Folsom and Clementina Streets within the mixed-use residential district and a split height and bulk district, one half being in the 45X and the other in the 85X height and bulk district. This project proposes the demolition of an existing single-story automotive repair and paint shop and construction of an 8-story mixed-use building containing 33 dwelling units, of which 4 would be on-site affordable units, and approximately 951 square feet of ground floor commercial space fronting onto Folsom Street. The project would include approximately 3,400 square feet of common and 1,300 square feet of private open space, 14 off-street vehicle parking spaces, 34 Class 1 bicycle parking spaces, and 4 Class 2 bicycle parking spaces. The project's massing emphasizes its height along Folsom Street to the full 8 stories, while stepping down to 4 stories along Clementina with a central courtyard that would connect with the developing mid-block open space. The ground floor provides pedestrian-oriented commercial frontage along Folsom Street. In order to proceed, the project would require large project authorization and shadow authorization. As part of the large project authorization, the project is requesting exceptions from rear yard, dwelling unit exposure, street frontage for the Clementina Street frontage, and off-street parking. Compliance with the criteria for the exceptions is described in your Section 329 motion. Staff believes that the requested modifications are merited due to the overall quality of the architecture design and the appropriate configuration of the central open space and ground floor circulation. In addition, the project requires the Planning Commission with the Recreation and Park Commission make a determination that the shadow impacts of the project will not be significant or adverse to Gene Friend Recreation Center. In summary, the department supports the project because it meets the goals and objectives of the general plan and the zoning district. It would be providing new high-density mid-rise housing and expanded retail and commercial space. The project exhibits overall quality of design and an appropriate massing for a through lot that fronts onto a narrow street. It meets all applicable code requirements with the exception of the noted exceptions. The department has received correspondence from 3 residents expressing concern for the effects of the project on light to nearby properties, the amount of on-site parking, and 1 letter, while not in opposition to the project, just expressing general concerns over the loss of automotive-oriented businesses in the neighborhood. The department has received correspondence from 5 residents in support of new housing in the neighborhood and the project design, and letters of support from United Players, West Bay Multi-Service Center, and the Filipino American Development Foundation in support of the project. This concludes my report, and I will hand it over to Jordan to discuss the shadow impacts.
Good morning again, Commissioners. I'm not sure if the presentation will load, but I will skip some of the background that I provided in the previous presentation. For brevity, here is an image just illustrating the location of this project relative to the Gene Friend Rec Center, and here's a rendering of the project that Ella just described for you. And here's Gene Friend again. Moving on to a summary of the quantitative effects from this project at 980 Folsom Street. As you can see, there is a 0.005% increase as a percentage of the TAAS, theoretically annually available sunlight, over the course of the year. This slide summarizes the qualitative effects. The size of the largest single shadow is 805 square feet. It occurs mainly along the Harriet Street entryway, and the average duration is about 16 minutes during the time of new shadow, which is from May to August. This image illustrates that largest single shadow, and this animation shows the shadow crossing the site. Finally, as I presented previously, there are other projects within the area. Here's an illustration where they are, as well as a summary which was provided in your packet of the individual shadow results from those projects. And this is a summary of this particular project, 980 Folsom Street. I'm available to answer any questions, as is Ella. Thank you.
Thank you. Project sponsor, welcome. You have 10 minutes.
I'm going to be hello, Commissioners. I'm John Goldman of Goldman Architects. I'm also a member of 980 Folsom LLC, so I'm here today as both architect and project sponsor, as a member of the development team. I'm going to be using the overhead today. So how do we get
It
You
should
just
be
place
on-
them face
yeah.
up, and SF.gov TV will then go to them.
Is there anything I need to do? Okay, so I have this face up now.
It's on.
Excuse me?
It's on the screen.
On the screen.
Oh, it is?
That's not it? Okay.
A little bit distorted on the aspect ratio, but anyway, that's fine. Okay, so I just want to talk at first a little bit about the shadow impact, a little bit more. 0.005%, 1/200th of 1%, 160 times less than the project you just approved. But beyond that, the project, the shadow is in an area 2 hours. Oh, excellent. Thanks. Shadow occurs 2 hours before the rec center opens in a little area by the alley. When we first started studying shadow, we didn't see any shadow impact, but it turns out because of the particular shape of the roof, this kind of sawtooth shape of the rec center roof, a little bit of sunlight gets through. You can see the shadow by the alley. The shadow that we cast is actually fully surrounded by shadow cast by the building itself. So this is a very tiny impact.
A shadow within a shadow.
Right there is the area of time of greatest shadow, 7 a.m., June 21st, 2 hours before the rec center opens. As you see, that shadow surrounded by total shadow. It doesn't even get on the basketball court. It's on the walkway going towards the rec center. And then by 7:15 a.m., the shadow's completely off the site. It's already on 6th Street. So I think this is about as insignificant a shadow as any project you've yet seen. It's less than the projects you approved on 6th Street. And when we met with community groups, the shadow impact was really not an issue. It's so tiny. What I'd like to do today is talk a little bit about who I am, what we've been doing. I bought a warehouse on Russ Street, 1.5 blocks from the project site, back in 1997, back when there was such a thing as live-work projects allowed by the planning. And my goal was to put my architecture office in there and live above, which I did. So I actually have a true live-work building, unlike the vast majority that were built under the live-work ordinances back in the 80s. My employees come in every day. It looks like a regular architecture office to anybody who comes there, but I actually live there as well, so true live work. I moved in March 2001, so I'm very much a member of this community, the South of Market community. I'm within a block to 2 blocks of the neighborhood organizations that are here today and who are favoring the project. So I'm part of this community, and I'm very excited to be able to design some high-density housing in a block and a half of my office and help contribute to the affordable and market-rate housing issues that we have in the city today. So I thought I'd just talk to you a little bit about some of the design ideas today. I'm start with the massing. As it was mentioned briefly before, we have an 85-foot high building along Folsom and a 43-foot high building along Clementina with a courtyard in between. We're responding to the scale of each street. So So 85-foot high building along Folsom, 43-foot high building along Clementina. The big Mossel project, I'm sure you're very familiar with, on the corner of 5th and Folsom, is 85-foot high. There's also other new buildings that's just finishing construction next to the fire station, 85-foot high. So we're 85-foot high. We look a little tall right now, but there's lots of 85-foot high buildings on this block of Folsom between 6th and 5th. And I'm going to show you on the facade works in different ways depending on the street. On Clementina, so on Clementina, it's a more traditional expression. A bay window parallel to the street, large central bay. See that pattern all over the mid-block areas south of Market. Trellis above, aluminum and glass, concrete frame. windows infilled, garage door to the garage on the left, and a double entry door on the right there. Now, originally the garage was actually entered off of Folsom, but as you know, Folsom's been completely redesigned, and it's no longer a good idea to enter any garage off of Folsom, especially since we'd have to cross bike parking. So we have sort of preliminary sidewalk design for Folsom, but it's going to be changed probably. We weren't able to do additional sidewalk design until we know how Folsom ultimately will be designed. We hope to add more amenities on the sidewalk in front of our building, but we just cannot design it yet until the Folsom design's further along. But along Clementina, it's smaller scale and a little bit more traditional expression within the modernism, within the modern overall expression. There's 4 units in that building along Clementina. Okay, so along Folsom, the basic concept here is almost neoclassical, but obviously in a very modern interpretation. You've got a base, middle, and top. This base here, 2 stories high. We made it grander than the 15-foot normal base would be by incorporating the second floor housing into that. That facade faces the street, parallel to the street. Above that, there's a number of all the housing. And the bays, they're not really bay windows, but they're angled window infill within the exposed concrete grid. And they angle in different directions. The idea here is Folsom's very fast, very loud, very busy. So this facade is about dynamic motion. And also there's some great views up there. On top of the building, you have the kind of a reinterpretation of a cornice, of a traditional cornice, but it's done in glass and aluminum. The street, it's parallel to the street up there, so that corresponds to the overall scale of the neighborhood where buildings tend to be aligning with street grids. But the bulk of the building in the middle part of the building, is where you have all the dynamic motion of the infill. Notice that it may be a little hard to see here, but let's try this one. If you look closely here, the concrete grid is different where the townhouses are versus the flats. There's townhouses here, and flats, flats, flats. The concrete grid is done in such a way that if you're looking at the building, you can actually see where the townhouses are and where the flats are. You have 3 stories of flats and 4 stories of townhouses, and the concrete grid expresses that way. The other thing to note is the bays are inset within the concrete grid. In other words, the concrete grid is entirely parallel to the street. So unlike typical ways of doing a bay window where the floor extends out to receive the bay, this is not done here. These are like little crystalline structures set into the concrete grid. And that enhances, allows you to read the strong structural system while having this dynamic motion of the infill glass system. And then a very large, a Boulder Express base with more concrete. Let's see. Here, a view from the side, you can start to see how in some of the corners, to encourage the sense of motion, we actually cut away the concrete at the corner, and the glass actually wraps around the corner to give even more a sense of emotion as you're looking at the facade. And then here on the sides, we've added windows, a pattern of grids, different colors, and eventually we'd like to see possibly plants grow down the sides or incorporate, we actually hope to incorporate large murals on the side of the building with Filipino artists doing Filipino art-themed art on the side of the building, assuming we can get that through planning. And I have no idea what their point of view will be on that, but that's our goal. Kind of the streetscape when you're walking along the street. You have this double height, it's actually triple height expression. Oh, I'm done already?
30 seconds. 30 seconds.
30 seconds, okay. One more. Showing some of the details. We've met frequently with community groups. I think some of them are here to talk about it. We have a great relationship with them, and as I said, I'm in the community myself. They're not only community groups, I've become friends with these people. They're my neighbors. I'm a block from United Players. So it's been a great experience. and I'm very excited to be able to do housing in my own neighborhood. And of course, I'm open for questions.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Goldman. We'll open this item up for public comment. I don't have any speaker cards, but if you'd like to comment on this item, please come forward. Welcome, Ms. Olivas.
Good morning, Commissioners. I can't begin to say how much I appreciate this project sponsor. I know the last time this item was continued because there hadn't been any outreach or communication, and what we really learned is that it's because he is a neighbor in the community doing this kind of on his own, and we just really appreciate the transparency that he's had all along, his willingness to meet with us and talk to us. From the beginning, he's been like, I want to show you my pro forma. You want to see my pro forma? And we were like, yes, somebody who wants to just open the books and talk to us about what's really going on. And so we've really appreciated that. We fully support this project, and we are excited to see, again, housing in the neighborhood. And just to add to that, I would love to invite everyone to come to the Gene Friend Rec Center on Halloween, 3 to 6. We host a free carnival for the youth in the neighborhood. Anyone who has any questions about what we do with the contributions that we're receiving, please come and learn about us. Our books are open. We are always welcoming everyone from the community to come and be a part of a really special place. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hello again, Carla Laurel from West Bay. Again, expressing my support for 980 Folsom Street. Just to echo what Misha was saying, we're extremely appreciative for this project sponsor really being extremely transparent and willing to get to know the community, work with us, collaborate with us. He himself lives and works in the community. He's attended our events and really got to know who we are. And in doing that, he's been able to make his project very mutually beneficial. It's something that's reflective of our concerns. And again, just to echo, he's been extremely transparent about everything, giving us long reports on his performa, every single line item, and explaining it to us so we really understand a deeper understanding of how projects are done too. So we're really appreciative of him. I'm grateful for the opportunities that are being created in this project for local hire, Filipino art, neighborhood preference, even in being able to own apartments in the neighborhood, and just everything else. So thank you.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is David Wu with SOMCAN. I'm going to be reading a letter from Angelica Cabande, who cannot be here. Dear Commissioners, thank you for your leadership and support in allowing time for our community to work with the developers of 980 Folsom Street project on improvements that will make the project more attuned to the needs of our community. In the last several months, our organization, along with other community orgs, were able to meet with the project sponsor to discuss community needs around affordable housing opportunity, nonprofit and artist space, culturally competent services, and neighborhood-friendly designs. This letter is to express support for the 980 Folsom project based on the developer's efforts and commitment to work with SOMCAN and other SOMA groups to improve access to the development's BMR units and job opportunities for our disadvantaged community members, also including Filipino artwork in the development, as well as support for neighborhood programs serving low-income families, youth, and seniors. Thank you again for your support and consideration of our community.
Thank you, Mr. Wu. Next speaker, please.
Good morning, Commissioners. Raquel Rodandis again from the Filipino American Development Foundation. I'm the project manager for Soma Pilipinas, the Filipino Cultural Heritage District. I won't repeat too much of the things that has been said already. I'm sure it's not a lot of times, though, that you actually have community groups personally liking a developer. And, you know, it's a testament to Mr. John Goldman, who, you know, has earnestly, you know, worked with our community, heard our concerns, and negotiated in good faith. And we do look forward to working with him. You know, a lot of times it's not just what's on paper, but it's really the relationship that's going to make things happen. And one thing I do want to highlight is his commitment to incorporate Filipino artwork, work from community-based art from the community. One of the things one of our challenges as a Filipino cultural district is that there's not a high visibility of our community in the neighborhood, even if we've been here over 100 years. For the outsider, people don't know that there is a thriving Filipino community. And so we're looking forward to working with him and actually other developers to really incorporate art that reflects the Filipino history, the contributions, and the legacy of the Filipino community in the city. And thank you again for the opportunity to be able to do that.
Great, thank you very much. Any additional public comment on this item? Seeing none, we'll close public comment and open it up to commissioners' questions and comments.
Thank you. I don't see any questions from the Rec and Park Commission. Let me remind you that as much as we'd love to help the Planning Commission reach design and other objectives, we're limited to shadow issues. So if we have questions about the shadows, we'd entertain them. I don't see any. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Moore?
Shadow on the alley, I assume, is not an issue in the first place. I mean, I'm glad it's being mentioned because it's the entry, but as far as I'm concerned, not even I would be worried about shadow. But
would you like to join the Recreation and Park Commission?
But I would like to say this is an exceptionally well-designed building. I think it is amazing how well it fits of where it is located. I think it's exceptional. I would call it almost an eye catcher. And I was happy to see it the first time around, and you presenting it makes it even better because it does show that somebody really understands the intricacies of where they are. We always talk about designing in context, but most architects step into these environments as a visitor and kind of try to understand, but this shows a really subtle, deep understanding of what is. And your supporters obviously speak about you as a neighbor, and that makes it even better. So long story short, I think it's a lovely project. I love the two-sidedness of the project. It's a smaller project on one side, and then it expresses itself consistently as a large project on the other side. So I can only sing my praise, and I'm very supportive of it.
I too am supportive. Thank you, Mr. Goldman, for I think we've seen these projects that have through lots that aren't well designed, but I think you've kind of taken both sides of this and made them work together, and it works well. So even though you recognize too that your building's taller than the ones next to it, it works perfectly on that site. So I appreciate your attention to everything as well as the work with the community. Commissioner Moore.
Move to approve.
Second.
And again, I think we have to take the joint action first.
Correct.
So we'll start with 2A.
Yes. On that motion, Commissioners, to accommodate new shadow cast by the proposed project, Commissioner Fong.
Aye.
Commissioner Koppel.
Aye.
Commissioner Melgar.
Aye.
Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
Commissioner Richards.
Aye.
And Commission President Hillis.
Aye.
So moved, Commissioners. That motion passes unanimously, 6-0.
Commissioners.
Move approval on.
Thank
2A.
you. A second.
Moved and seconded.
Commissioner Anderson.
Aye.
Commissioner Bonilla.
Aye.
Commissioner Harrison.
Aye.
Commissioner Mazzola.
Aye.
Commissioner McDonald.
Aye.
And Commissioner Buell.
Aye.
And we now need a motion from the Recreation Park Commission on whether or not the shadow cast will have an adverse impact.
So moved.
So let me say that the motion should state as to whether it will or will not in your motion. So
is that your motion, Commissioner, that
I
it will?
move that it will not have a
Thank you.
significant adverse
Thank you.
impact.
thank you.
Second.
Okay. Commissioner Anderson.
Aye.
Commissioner Bonilla.
Aye.
Commissioner Harrison.
Aye.
Commissioner Mazzola.
Aye.
Commissioner McDonald.
Aye.
And Commissioner Buell.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Thank you, Commissioners. And Commissioner, I think we're adjourned.
We'll leave
Great.
the Planning Department and Commission to their work. Thank you
Thank you
very
very
much.
much.
As always, a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you, Commissioners.